Welcome to Glisten's Culinary Delights. Today I've got a great recipe for you. Now if you watched my video last week where I made pulled pork sandwiches, then this week is an important video because I'm making leftovers from that pulled pork that we made. So if you made that recipe and you've got a lot of things that you want to cook with that pulled pork, then here's a suggestion. So stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed already, do so now because I've got some good videos coming. So let's get started. All right, so here is our pulled pork. Now, if you watched last video, you would see exactly how we made this delicious pork, and it was so good, let me tell you. But we are going to transform this pulled pork into this. We are making the best recipe today, okay? I can attest this is such a simple dish and it's delicious. So we are gonna use this pulled pork and we are gonna make some empanadas. Now, not just regular empanadas. Now, I lived in Panama for about 1.5 years, and one of my favorite things to eat there was at the grocery store. They had these little packets of empanadas, and they were just some corn empanadas, and they were so good. And so I dream about those sometimes still, even though it's been a long time. So today we're gonna try to recreate those empanadas, but instead of the meat that they had in there, we are gonna use our pulled pork meat. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make 2 different sauces, and I'm gonna put this pulled pork in the oven. Now you can cook it just like this in the tin, or you can put it in some foil and wrap it up nice and tight and put it in there. It doesn't need to be in there for very long because we're just trying to warm it up for our empanadas. So like 10-15 minutes at 350 would be totally fine. And we'll get started with our sauces next. Okay, so let's get going with our first sauce. So the first sauce we're going to make is an avocado crema. And so I've got 2 avocados in my blender, and I'm gonna put 1/2 cup of sour cream in there as well. All right, and then I've got 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then the juice of a full lime. Now I'll usually just do just half of it first, and then I can put the rest in later. And then I'm gonna do about 1/2 of a serrano pepper. You can do jalapenos if you want it just a little less spicy, if you prefer. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm just gonna stick a drizzle of water into my blender. You're gonna use about 3 tablespoons of water. And I'm gonna turn this on, and we're gonna blend it all up. Take a look. Oh yeah, that's looking really good. That's really good. All right, 1 sauce down, 1 more to go. On to sauce number 2. So this one is a red chimichurri, and the reason we're making this is because we are going to put some in our pork mixture, in our pulled pork mixture, and then it's also for dipping if you want to dip it too. So here are the ingredients. So I have some roasted red chili peppers, and they just come in a jar like this. I don't know if you've never seen them. This is what they look like. So I've got 1/3 cup of that, and then I've got some cilantro. Now usually chimichurri has parsley in it, but we're using cilantro for ours. So then I've got 3 cloves of garlic, olive oil, red wine vinegar. Last but not least is our spices. So we have some paprika, some salt, some pepper, some cumin, some red pepper flakes in here. Put on our lid. Blend. Right, and then I'll just pour my chimichurri in a bowl. All right, so let's get our dough together for our empanadas. So first things first, I have a 1.5 cup of this masarepa, and this is what it looks like. It's just basically yellow cornmeal. So I've just put that in my bowl. And then here I have some seasoning. So I have some Sazon Goya, which is just like a seasoning. That's what it looks like. Get a close-up shot. And then some salt in here. So I'm just gonna put that in there. So then I'm just gonna stir that up so it's all incorporated. All right, once that's done, I'm going to get a tablespoon of vegetable oil and then some water. And I have a cup here, but I'm not gonna put the whole thing in. You're just gonna do it a little at a time. You can use your spoon for now. You're gonna have to knead it in a minute, but so this is kind of the texture you're looking for. You don't want it to be too crumbly or falling apart. So I'm gonna knead this for a couple of minutes. So I'm just gonna form it kind of into a ball. And we're gonna wrap this up. This is the texture we're kind of looking for. So I'm gonna wrap this up and cover it for about 20 minutes and just let it sit while I get our meat going, and then I'll get our oil heated up. All right, let's get to the main event. So we have our pulled pork here, and it's all warmed up. I just stuck it in this bowl. I'm just gonna kind of shred it even smaller than it already is so that it fits well in our empanadas. Okay, so now that that's shredded, I'm gonna use our chimichurri that we made earlier. Just stir it up a little bit. And I'm gonna put a couple of spoonfuls in my pork mixture, depending on taste, on how much pork you have left over, how much empanadas you plan on making. So with what I have, a couple spoonfuls should be okay. But you might need to do more if you're using more pork, or you're making more empanadas. You can always taste it. Make sure you put enough. I feel like I need a little more. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my oil on, because we're going to get these babies ready. So I have my dough, and if it dries out a little bit while you're like waiting, you can always add more water. Mine looks good, so I'm not gonna add any more. But if you watch my tortilla recipe, you'll see it's pretty similar as far as how we're gonna do it. We're going to make little dough balls like that. You don't want it to be super crumbly, so if it is crumbly, you're gonna wanna put a little bit more water in there. Right, so that's what you're looking for. So an easy way to make empanadas is to have something like this. You can make pies out of this, little hand pies or whatever, or empanadas. And so I suggest having one of these just because it's easier. You don't have to crimp the corners. But if you don't have one, that's totally fine too. So I'm gonna have that out, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open up my tortilla press and stick one of my dough balls into the tortilla press. Flatten it. Alright. And then I'm going to take it off of my paper and stick it on my empanada mold. Now, if you made big enough balls, it should fit. Once I have it on my empanada mold, I'm going to add our pork into it. And you're only going to do it on one side. You don't want to overstuff them. Alright, and then it's pretty easy after that. You just have to press it down. And as you can see, it's crimping the corners, but the bottom is still in place. There you have it. You have an empanada. So I'm going to make a bunch of these, and I'm just going to lay them out here on the counter, and then we will fry them up in our pan with our oil that's heating up already. Okay, once your oil is warmed up, we are going to put these in our oil to fry them up. So you'll know it's warmed up when you hear that sizzle. Now when you're making these, make sure you can always just like, if there's any like gaps or anything like that, you can just squeeze the gaps closed so they don't start to open up when you're frying them. So you're gonna wanna have a plate with a paper towel nearby, so that way when you're ready to take them out, you can drain them on the paper towel. Looking good. Look at how gorgeous they look. So good. All right, so I'm going to plate these up with their seasonings and some other toppings, and then we will give it a taste. We are ready to dig in. So here I have some of my molcajete salsa. If you haven't seen that video, it was my first video that I put out, so go back in time and see that video. And then I also have our chimichurri that we just made, and our empanadas here. I have our avocado crema. So what I'm going to do to plate this up is I'm just going to squirt some of that crema. Okay, so let's dig in. Gonna grab one of these. I'm gonna try it without the sauces first, and then we'll dip it in the sauce in a sec. If you didn't hear it when I bit into it, so crispy, so delicious. Tastes, it just reminds me of Panama so much, except for we changed it up a little bit and we used some leftover meat that we had. So there's lots of things that you can do with your pulled pork. If you have extra pulled pork, you make this, you can make some tacos, you can make your more pulled pork sandwiches. I even have made omelets with it before. So be inventive, be creative, make what you want. Make this recipe definitely, because it is amazing. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already, please subscribe. You can also comment below if you have any comments, or if you've actually tried this recipe and you want to let me know how you liked it, then definitely comment below. Thank you so much for joining me.